So welcome to the Creative Shared Interest Group for November. We'll start the evening with a short presentation by Steve Smith and Kathryn Delany. Steve will go first. This will be followed by randomly moving you into smaller groups in the breakout rooms. And as I've just said, on the chat is now a list of 7 different questions. And so I believe there'll be, if the numbers stay as they are now, we'll have 5 groups. So if you're in group 1, please use question number 1, etc. I'll come through the groups just to make sure everything's working okay. Each room will have its own question, and please discuss those and find a spokesman in your group who could bring your insights back to the larger group.
I just noticed, Kevin, there's no question number 5.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That's tricky, eh? So I guess number 5.
Substitute 6
okay.
for 5.
Let's do number 6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a little tricky, complicated. Thank you, Dennis. Depending on the time, we'll take a short break or move into a usual, until we move into the usual second half of the evening. And this is where you get to share your images, of course. And the creative challenge for this month has been experimenting with AI-generated art. A maximum of 8 images, please. And if you have other creative projects you're working on that you want to share, those are fine too. So for those who have not sent their images to Norman or me, please have your images ready to go using share screen. We'll then close the evening with a monthly challenge for December, January. There'll be no creative SIG meeting in December. So let me begin by the brief introduction of Steve. Many of you already know him since he was a Victoria Camera Club member for several years. Steve believes the art of photography is a combination of light, composition, and a moment to craft a compelling piece of visual art. Compelling because an emotional link is forged between the viewer and the image. Steve's photography began in his teens with film and a homemade darkroom. Later, as managing partner of a professional services firm, his photographs were used to document professional forestry reports for clients. Steve's photography has won a collection of awards in Canadian and international competitions, including gold medals and Best in Show. His photographs have also appeared in the local press in juried print shows and local galleries. Steve has judged local and international photographic competitions, and he has taught forestry courses at university and now teaches photography courses at the McTavish Academy of Art. And I believe that's in North Saanich, Sydney area. He is also a resident of Sydney, BC. So over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Kevin. So I thought I would start by giving some background on the history of AI, artificial intelligence. The term was invented in 1956, so it's not very old, by someone called John McCarthy. And he invented the term and then he had a conference. So, but in 1969, Shaky was produced, and Shaky was a mobile robot. And the thing about Shaky was it could do things with a purpose versus just abiding by a list of instructions. So artificial intelligence, until recently, is always referred to machines, machine learning by machines. 1997, there was a big leap forward and IBM built their Deep Blue computer that was designed to play chess, and it beat the world chess champion in a match. And then 2002, the first commercially successful vacuum cleaner was robotic vacuum cleaner was invented. And then between 2005, 2019, we have speech recognition came along, something called robotic process automation, which is taking it to production lines. There was a dancing robot, smart homes appeared, and then there were other innovations. And then again, machines. Then in 2020, a company called Baidu came up with an algorithm called the linear fold AI algorithm. And that was used to develop a vaccine in the early stages of the COVID pandemic. And that algorithm could predict RNA sequences of the virus very quickly, so that people could figure out what the RNA sequence was. So there's 4 kinds of artificial intelligence, 2 of which they have names for, but they don't exist. So there's the purely reactive. Those are machines that don't have any memory, and they work just in one field. The chess computer is an example of that. There's limited memory, where machines collect previous data and can keep adding to it, and then they have enough memory or experience to make decisions. And things like Midjourney are kind of that kind of thing, because they depend on memory and what people did in the past. They don't do anything themselves except take the pieces of memory and then put them together to manufacture images. There's 2 others. Theory of mind doesn't exist. It's a dream of a machine that can understand thoughts and emotions. And then self-awareness doesn't exist. But self-aware machines, they say, will be intelligent, sentient, and conscious, a bit like the movie Blade Runner, I guess. So nowadays, AI is a big marketing phrase, and there's all kinds of startups and tech companies that claim their product is fueled by AI or machine learning. Some of them are, and some it's questionable, just kind of marketing. So what I thought I would do is share my screen, show you an image that is produced with graphic design software, and then show you one that came from Midjourney. So I use a suite of programs called Affinity, and Affinity Photo is equivalent to Photoshop. Affinity Publisher is equivalent to Adobe Illustrator, and Affinity Design is equivalent, Affinity Design is.
Something's working.
Can you see a list of images?
Yes.
We see some thumbnails spread
Thumbnail.
across from a horizontal row of thumbnails.
Yeah.
Right.
So now don't stop sharing.
So if I stop sharing,
No,
well, I did stop sharing. You just told me to.
no, I didn't.
Okay. So then I'll start sharing again. You can't see that.
Ah, there we go.
We see it now.
Got
Okay,
it.
okay, good. So this is there's a sketch of a panther, just a pencil sketch, and then it's been scanned. So if you're using a graphic design package, you start to add lines. So what I'm using is an example from a workbook. So this isn't my work, it's in a workbook. So it's nice to have these lines. You'll see why later on, as well as the panther. So those are added next. And the next thing to do is to trace over the sketch and make a set of different shapes. And so you can do that with a pen tool. But what you can also do is turn them into geometric shapes. So it's your choice as to how many shapes you have to make up the panther. So now you've got, these are geometric shapes, these are lines. So now what you want to do then is add color. So you make the, in this case, the background black. You make these lines this yellow color, and then you've got the orange and the red and the gray and that color. So you just colored different parts. In the eyes, you can't, that's okay. You can't see it, but what the hell happened? In the eyes, they're glowing there, and to get that effect, you go into the eyes and make several little ellipses and circles in a donut. So I only want So after adding the colors, then you've got all these different shapes. So you change the opacity in them so you get some overlapping. So this face and this part of an ear overlaps, these parts of the body overlap. So you've got some definition now, but it's flat. So the next thing you want to do is use gradients to volumize the parts and add some 3D to it, and also again highlight what pieces you want. So you're using opacity to get these overlaps, and then gradients across the geometric shapes to get that. So here are the gradients. Now, these lines have also used gradients because you can see these are starting dim and light. These two lines decided they don't add anything, so get rid of those. So that's the final image. So that's a person using graphic design to create a graphic design. So if I go to, it's a panther with glowing eyes. So if I go to Midjourney and I type /imagine panther with glowing eyes, then I get this. So that's what you get from the graphic design package, and this is what you get from Midjourney. So there's a human doing a lot of work here. There's a machine scraping its memory and producing an image. So I have a pretty simple view of the Midjourney stuff. I think that art is something that's done by humans, and the Midjourney isn't done by humans. It's taking what some humans gave, but it seems to me it's like a chocolate factory. It's producing lovely things that look good, and in the case of chocolates, taste good, but they're manufactured. And to me, all of the the Mid-Journey stuff and Wally are manufactured images, which isn't to say they're not wonderful and they're not to be admired and used in all kinds of applications. So, for example, computer games, backgrounds, I think things like Mid-Journey are great for manufacturing that. But it's still like a chocolate factory. So, and to me, art is something done by humans, not by a machine or something else. So that's my pretty simple approach to it. And I apologize for the Zoom stumbles, but I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now. And I don't know.
Great, Steve. That's great. So we're going to move on to Kathryn in a minute, but do anybody have any comments or questions for Steve?
Yeah, I do. Very interesting. I don't use Mid-Journey. I use something called Stable Diffusion. It has beyond text to image, it has an ability, something called image to image. So for example, it could take as an input your first sketch of a panther and use that as the input image, and then your text to go along with it would say, okay, I want a red panther with glowing eyes and blah, 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 blah. And then it would apply that to your sketch. And I would be really curious as to what it would produce in that context.
No, but it wouldn't be your work. It would be looking at all the other people's work it's scraped off the internet and
yeah, sure thing. Yeah,
together, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so, but the difference is that it would be your sketch. It would start with, so you sort of have some input into it beyond the text string.
And they would be wonderful images, and they're they're very pretty. They're very decorative, and I'm thinking that you look at them and you go, wow, but okay.
Does Mid-Journey let you put your own image in yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Delany does that. Delany 2 allows you to do that.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting.
Great.
And then one thing to note with all of these AI to art apps, most of them require you to buy tokens to use their software. So for version 1, I don't know how much the tokens are, but you get to use a token on one rendition. And if you want to try it again, you use another token. I think Mid-Journey gives you X number of free ones to start with, and then it becomes a pay per use.
Yeah, I don't know, because I joined the beta.
Yeah.
The beta group, yeah.
Stable Diffusion can be installed on your own machine. So I have it installed on my own machine. Unlimited use, I just churn out, run it. It takes a while to run because I don't have a suite of computers, whatever is in the background of these websites. It's one computer, which is not a slow computer by any means, but it does take 15 minutes to produce 4 or 5 images, depending on some of the complexity.
They're pretty,
but it's pretty nice though to be able to just run through things, try it, tweak your text, tweak some other settings. So
people are getting very good at it.
I use an app called Night Cafe.
Yeah.
And you can use your own images and then put some kind of style to it, or you can just pick a phrase and it'll generate different pictures based on what style you choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there you get 5 credits a day for free.
Yeah,
so
5 credits a day for free. So it adds up pretty quick.
Kind of fun. Yeah.
Kathryn, how about if we move on to you now? Would that be all right?
Okay, that's fine. I don't think I need much introduction by now. I think most people know who I am. My background is as a fine artist using traditional tools. I now classify myself as a digital artist using digital tools. And coming lately, I want to be a photographer as well. So I've got 3 creative hats that I want to smush all into one and come out with something totally different. I consider all this technology, computers, computer generated art as tools. I don't necessarily see it right now in terms of me as a creator of being an end product. So I've been playing with it when they first came out with some apps, and as most people also know, I'm also very much into using my iPad for most creative stuff. And they had a couple of early stage AI apps that were free, and I've dabbled with them. And what I've done is I've put together a couple of movies, one showing you how I would go and use the AI art apps, AI to art apps on my iPad. One of them is purely text to art, and the other one allows you to either sketch or put an image in to art. And then once we've gone through that and you kind of see the process and some of the really interesting art that comes out of, I've also put together a little movie of my process of taking an AI generated piece of art and creating my art out of it. And then I've got various
Awesome.
different things to show you different stages. So I'm going to share my screen, Kevin. I've got some music, so I think there's some things I have to check before I do the
Yeah,
share.
exactly. So when you click share screen, you'll
Yes.
see the different screens there that you have. And then at
Yeah.
the bottom, I think over to the left, there's two
Yeah.
check things to check, two boxes to check, and then
Yeah, got it.
hit share. Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm going to show the AI to art app first. It's about 2 minutes, so for goodness sake.
It's good.
All right. So here we go. And I made the music very faint, so it wasn't too distracting. So here you can see me typing in a prompt. The finer you tune your prompt, the better. So if you do this Alice in Wonderland, because it's something that's been on my mind, I created a very simple prompt. This particular app gives you 4 renditions. You can see how scary it can be. They're not quite up on the anatomy. And then you can keep regenerating. You can generate another version. You can keep doing it. I had said in the Van Gogh style. This one I'm using my own photo plus text. And so it'll take my photo and it'll fill in what I said. I think I said a leopard smoking a cigar in a bar or something like that. And these are the kind of things that got rendered in this particular app, and it's called Photolib. And this is a new one that's just come out into my attention called Wonder. It's a little bit more sophisticated, but it's purely text to art. So, and you can see underneath, people give different inspirations. You can use that as your start point. You can also do your prompt, and then they say in what style, like mythology, novelist, realist, pen and ink. Pen and ink one is pretty amazing in this one. I think on this one, I might have chosen a realistic look. It does its crunching. You sit and you wait. It's not quite as long as the other ones that you were talking about on your computer, and then you can recreate them. You can choose from one of 4. This one had 3 generated, and you can choose them. You can print them, pop them down. You can see how they're pretty surrealistic. So it's quite funny. And then you just keep going and having fun, and you see other people put in their inspirations, and you can try their versions with whatever you use as their prompt, and everything always comes out. So for me, this is a tool. I'm going to stop this, and then I'll go in and reshare. It's a tool to generate ideas with my art, and even with the photography now, I'll often sketch and just sketch and sketch and sketch and see if something pops and resonates with me. And for me, this is a tool that does the same thing as the sketching. Put in an idea, see what pops out, and then we can go further with it. So now I'll show you what I do with my art using one of those scary Alice looks. And I'll do this one. So I'm on an iPad when I do this, and I use an app called Procreate. And this is whimsical. It's kind of fun. I picked the palette from the AI art, and you can see there that I use that, and that definitely influenced me on what I did as throughout the image. Both panning, colors, and paint strokes. One thing for sure, I wasn't going to trace that thing. She had some very scary anatomy.
Interesting.
So that was that one.
Kathryn, which software did you use for that?
That one I used Procreate.
Procreate. Okay.
Yes, it's a painting app that a lot of people are doing. They're doing their photo editing in it to a degree when they're doing compositing and stitching together.
Yeah, that's nice.
So it works on layers, same principle as Photoshop.
Right.
I'm a little bit more intuitive. It's really fun to do. And then I'll finally do one more share, and I'll show you some of the processes of where I'm playing and how I go and look for things to work with. So let me just get into full screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is the prompt was a goddess with a raven, and I'd taken an image of one of the ladies up at the Rapture Center holding a falcon. And this was the process that came using my image. And this is in an app called Wombo. The actual app is called Dream by Wombo. If nothing else, it gives you a starting point for an image to paint. It sort of has a lot of movement to it. Here's another version of it with different image that I used. And this is the picture that I plugged in with my text, one of the pictures. You can kind of see there what it did with it. And it's still pretty scary in terms of what the faces look like, what actually happens. And then this is another version of it. And there's the image that was plugged in. And this one is more sci-fi. Then this one is a steampunk version of the Gasworks Park in Seattle, which is kind of fun. And then the Central Library in Seattle has these lovely yellow escalators. And this one, I was just testing out the different prompts that they have, there's different styles they have, see if something would spark me. Again, this is a steampunk look, which I kind of like. And then this was a merge of my image of the guy coming down the escalator. It wasn't a very in focus image, which is why I was playing with it, but it gives you a kind of fun result. This is the actual image that I took, and that was the merged result. This I merged in, I think I merged the two in superimpose on my iPad. And then this one was I used an image of a swan that I'd taken, and it was a goddess and her swan dervish. And they're pretty out there, some of these things, but they're fun. They've got some movement. They've got some really good color. Some people really like this. This was high tea was the prompt. This was also high tea, afternoon tea, high tea with the prompt of diamond trees. This was the clock that's down on Government Street. I took the image and I I gave it the prompt of time lapse, and I think I told it sci-fi, or it could have been steampunk. I was into steampunk at the end. Same thing. So you get different versions. This one is purely none of my own image, but just verbal. This was again in the Celtic style. And then some of these are just purely just made for fun. This is the dream. That was using my image. This was just purely text to an image. Same thing here. And then this one was, you can see the prompt at the top. It's not a bad face, but it's still a bit weird, as is that one. So it's really kind of surrealistic art in a way. And the colors always seem to be really saturated. I quite like this one. This is very much towards the graphic design aspect that Steve was doing. And I might have had been the abstract as a prompt. This is a Dream Studio AI that you can use, and the prompt was purely, you can see at the bottom, a bald eagle with a fish in its talons flying through the Manhattan skyline. And it's got it, but still got a lot to work on the anatomy of live things. And as Steve said, it's getting good. People can really manipulate this stuff, but there's a nuance missing that an artist's experience in a lifetime of living and trial and error is missing in this. But this guy is pretty creepy. They definitely have a bias. The fox is a little weird. This one is the new app Wonder on the iPad, and the prompt was a fox reading a book with eyeglasses. That's not bad, except for, you know, the shape of the leg here, but it's actually pretty good. But the colors again are really saturated. The prompt was hyper realistic man, anatomically correct in a pen and ink sketch style. And I quite like that, seeing as I like pen and ink. That's quite nice. You could perhaps use that as a prompt. Same prompt, different look. Pretty good if you look at it. It's got all these reflected lights and colors are good and brush strokes. This was again the Alice in Wonderland, really sort of weird, scary stuff. This one was a miss. And this one. The colors are good for an inspiration. There's another really strange one for Alice in Wonderland. And then that was the final one that I used. So for me, it's a tool. It's fun. It's an idea sparker. I think the real place where AI is going and the future is like in the apps we are using for editing our images. That's all AI. All of them are calling themselves AI now, although they've been there for a long time. But it's for graphic designers and photographers, it might be more of a threat to them than it is to me personally as an artist. You may all feel a little differently, but it's a big topic. And there's a lot of potential, and the algorithms are getting better by the day. The more that gets fed into these machines, the more that's coming out of them. AIs in our industrial society from many eons ago, as Steve has remarked, and they're all tools to gain an end, but a machine doesn't have the personal experience that people do. So
Awesome.
that's my bit.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. Any comments for Kathryn?
I have a
Questions?
comment in general. So I was visiting in California, my 3 grandchildren who are age 7 and 5, and their dad, who is a computer scientist, got interested in this topic because I told him we were talking about it. So he started up Delany and let the children do the prompts. And I have to tell you, they can beat us on the creativity scale.
Imagination.
Yes.
It's just amazing. But I would say that my background is a Delany picture with the prompt of a panda in Monet style in a garden.
Yeah.
Just came right out.
It's pretty impressive. Particularly these bigger engined ones than, the smaller little ones that are just on an iPad or that.
Yeah, the advantage of the Dolly one is that you're using their computing power, but of course you eventually have to pay, but you get a lot of fun before you have to pay.
Yeah.
And the children just loved it. It was great fun.
Yeah. I'm part of a Facebook group, and the stuff that people are putting out on that group is just amazing. But they're spending a lot of time on it.
Yeah, well, the man who won the state fair in Colorado said he had 900 tries in order to make his winning pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it is lots of fun. I mean, it is.
Yeah. To manipulate the algorithm and go back and change it and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it.
Well, it's easy to do, and you can just.
Yeah. So it's
Any other questions for, sorry, Kathryn? Yeah. I just looking at the time.
Oh, yeah, just move on then. Sorry.
Well,
Go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was just commenting that Kathryn had two of my favorite sites in Seattle, the library and the ironworks.
Yeah, the gasworks is pretty amazing.
Gasworks, pardon me. Yeah, they're both fantastic sites. The library is an amazing building. Yes.
It is. It really is. It's lovely. So yeah. Thanks for your time. Thanks for looking. Thanks for taking part.
Well, I didn't want to cut you off. I just want to know if there's more questions for you or comments.
Doesn't seem so.
I'm curious to know about the file size that you produce.
Off the iPad, they're not very big. So they're not even, some of them aren't even a megabyte.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, it'll probably, with paying, you get a bigger file size. But I think, Steve, you may speak to that. The Mid-Journey, what kind of file size does it give you?
It does upsize, and it depends on the image, and so it does upsize to some extent, but not a lot. Haven't gotten a megabyte file. And what I have done is then pulled them into Affinity Photo and just done the the regular resizing, and it doesn't work too well. They get the edges they're not sharp. It becomes a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, some of those images I was showing you that were generated, they're like 248 kilobytes. They're tiny.
yes, yeah.
So you're not going to get any quality out of it. But I think, with some upsizing, you can perhaps get bigger, but
What about you, Dennis? Some of the images that you've got.
Yeah, so what I generally do,
size.
so what I generally do is produce images that are like 512 by 768. That's the size I use. And then there's an extra add-on that lets you upsize it by a factor of 4, again, using AI. So the images are, 2K by whatever, right? They're a good size. The slider bar for actually when you generate the pictures can go up to 2K 2048, so 2K by 2K if you want it, but it would take a long time. I mean, again, I don't have the huge computing power that's behind the apps, but yeah.
Well, that would be on your machine. The thing with the things like Midjourney is there's hundreds of thousands of people using it simultaneously. So they can't afford to produce big file sizes.
So I'm thinking of upgrading my graphics card.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it uses the GPU a lot. So
yeah, it sure does. So it's fun.
But it that size is nice. I mean, it's a good size. So anyways, yeah.
So we're going to move on to the group, breaking into smaller groups.